What's up, guys? Drake here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. As we said before earlier in the week, we are proud and we are happy to bring you Mr. Trey Rowland of the Triple Option YouTube channel, or the video podcast, as he likes to call it, and also formerly of the Rollcast. We had Trey on for the State of the FS Union back in April, say the kind of like a temperature check of the state of affairs actually at the FSU football program. And we also had him back on last year after the UNC game. So it's kind of, fitting if we have him on again after UNC win for the bye week too, and also for leading up to UMass. He brings a sort of different take on FSU football, whether it be X's and O's, personal opinions, and also he's no hold barred, he's no filter, and that's why we love to have him on. That's why we want to bring him to you guys this week. And it's just me, Max, and Trey just chopping it up, and hopefully you guys enjoy today's episode. It's a two-parter. Today you'll be listening to it on today, Thursday, and also we have part 2 on Friday. And then, as you all know, on Saturday, we have the Week 7 pick'em with Mr. Danny Domino, the professional handicapper himself. So, without further ado, here's myself, Max, and Mr. Trey Rowland. Fellas, take it away.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Drake. I am joined by Max Wellsworth down below, and we have a very, very special guest. The one and only Mr. Trey Rowland of the Triple Option has joined us, and from his face, I think he's a little surprised by the little intro that we had just now. Trey.
Holy hell, man.
What's
that
going on,
was
my guy?
slick. I didn't realize I was with such professionals. I gotta care. That's great. I gotta step my game up, guys. That was very nice. Very slick.
We
have
like
grown.
send you to your corners, and you're in your own little. You get to kind of just like get hyped up, get ready to get ready.
Yeah, it was
to rumble,
good.
so.
I didn't know that was unprompted. So that was just production value such as this. Now let's go, boys.
Hey man, if you're paying top dollar, you got to expect a little production value. If anyone knows that quote, let me know where it comes from. But happy to have you here, man. Thanks for swinging by. We appreciate you joining us on this glorious fall evening to talk about Florida State football.
Absolutely. It's crisp up here in Iowa. There's pumpkin spice sprinkled on everything. This is the time of my people. The corn is being harvested, and we are in the thick of football season, which has been decidedly up and down.
How many C's with that thick, though? Is it 3 C's and 2 C's? Like, how thick are we talking here?
3 C's and a K, brother.
Woo! I like the way we're going. But before we dive into football, I do got to ask one, sort of fall question.
Oh,
So since you are the corn people up in Iowa, I need to know your stance, because I got a little, Twitter debate right now earlier in the day when I was on my lunch break. What's your stance on candy corn?
Oh, Jesus. This is like one of those things where it's like, it's cool to say that it sucks on Twitter, because like online, like everybody pretends like Nickelback's also horrible after like a couple Busch Lights, but I'm a proponent of candy corn. I don't know if that's going to get me thrown off your program or not, but I don't mind it. Now, anything with peanut butter is clearly superior as a Halloween snack, but I'll munch on some candy corn. I'm not above it. I have no shame.
And folks, that was the episode for today. Thank you so much, Trey, for coming on. I'm joking. No,
Is that a thing though? Is that the newest pineapple on pizza? The internet's coming for candy corn.
Dude, it's been a long time thing, man. It's depressing because I love candy corn.
Tell me you didn't have a good childhood without telling me.
Listen, it's just a little sugary triangle. It's got these different layers. You can like bite into the layer, and you can get to the little tip. Like it's just a fun snack.
Generation of vegans, man. Generation of vegans. And now they're
right.
coming for candy corn, which is probably made with high fructose corn syrup. So it probably is real corn in a way, right? Trey, I'm curious, with you up there in the great white Midwest, are you in an Iowa State town, an Iowa town? What's the main college football allegiance amongst the people with whom you fraternize? Fraternize.
Yeah.
Close enough. We're a Hawkeye household here. They have been my number 2 team, and diabolically, I actually like to watch them play because they're the bizarro world version of Florida State. Their linebackers play with great discipline. They are well coached in the secondary. They're always where they're supposed to be, and they have very solid offensive line play. So it's like, just take Florida State and just just invert it, and that's like Iowa. So I get like a weird pleasure in watching them beat like Northwestern 20-16. So they're my solid number 2 team. We're Hawk House.
God, you fully converted to the Big Ten sloppy defense type of thing. I mean,
not them all,
dude,
not them all.
but since we are an FSU program, let's talk about the team that we all three of us cover here. We had you on for the FSU State of the Union, the State of the FS Union. I want to say back in April. We also
Clever
had
pun,
one.
hell of a pun, man. Yeah, it was good stuff.
Trust me, we tried so hard to find something that worked for the offseason because the offseason was long, and you know that better than anybody else. And Trey, let's just start with a generic question right now. As of today, October 19th, 2021, how do you feel about the state of the FSU program, as of today?
Oh my God, I'm slightly optimistic because now I never would have predicted that start. That start was an abomination. It was disgusting. It was probably the worst loss in the history of the program. 0-4 was not fathomable to me. So somehow, after that 0-4 start, stringing together the Syracuse and particularly the North Carolina win in the way that they beat North Carolina, that dominant performance where it wasn't ever really a question from halftime on, was almost as surprising as the start. And I feel slightly optimistic because there are circumstances brewing in the college football world, specifically at Florida State's rivals and some schools that they are in some hardcore recruiting battles with, where Florida State can scrape together a nice back half of this schedule. Boys, we're back in it.
Yep.
We're back in it. Florida wants Dan Mullen gone. They're tired of the humpback. Manny Diaz is literally sobbing like an 11-year-old girl at a One Direction concert after every single football game he's in. Like, Jesus Christ. I think he sucks, so I don't feel bad for him, but I can understand how a lot of people do. And Dabo is finally being revealed as the fake piece of Southern trash that he is. And I love Southern people, but Dabo is Southern trash, and he sucks, and people are starting to finally realize that. I was ahead of the curve on Dabo sucking years ago. And everybody's like, no, he's a good guy, man. Oh, shucks. Blah, blah, blah. No, he sucks, and everybody knows he sucks now. So we just do what we need to do. The possibilities are endless, but we got to take care of the work on our end.
What I don't get is why we can't all be good at the same time. And I don't mean that in like, let's all get along. I mean, like, what's going to happen is we're going to start coming back, and then they're all going to start to suck again, and it's just going to become Florida State doesn't play anyone because our rivals are going to be terrible. And it's like, dude, but I want to dig it on Dan Mullen a little bit because I think everyone sees what's happening with Diaz. Obviously, look, they're 2-4 just like we are. They're the only reason they won 8 games last year was because of frankly a lucky break with us firing Willie landed them a great transfer quarterback. And now we're seeing that was just a splint that let him hobble, down the path a little bit more. What do you think about the Mullen situation? How much runway does he have left? I mean, when does Florida kick him out? Do they do an Ed Orgeron non-renewal? Like, how do y'all see that one playing?
Well, as long as Dan Mullen doesn't have a cavalcade of like Hogtown like women, and he brings their kids to practice, I don't know if they've got it. I don't know if they've got. I don't know if they can do an Ed Orgeron. My man Ed, coined by my friend Juan at Tomahawk Nation, as the Gumbo Shrek or the Etouffee Ogre. Ed Orgeron was a wild boy. Ed Orgeron was a wild boy over in the bayou.
The Kuyan. That's what they call him in Cajun, right?
The problem with Dan Mullen is that he is a very good X's and O's coach. Clearly, the recruiting he has no time for. And he's an odd guy. He also doesn't seem to have time for reshaping his staff. He has got some allegiances to some guys on his staff that absolutely suck and are dragging him down. So the problem is Florida State. I mean, Florida was in the quagmire that like Florida State's in now, right? They had McElwain. He faked death threats. They had Muschamp. Bodies in that guy's closet. They've been in the quagmire of bad coaching, and they finally found a competent one. So do you give that up? Do they try to be like the championship chasing school that they want to be? I don't know. I do know that patience within the fan base is at a boiling point, particularly with their quarterback situation. There's like an Emory or the Richardson kid. I think it's Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
That's going good. They want Todd Grantham fired. They hate their offensive line coach. And if Dan Mullen is stubborn enough to not do anything, he could find himself being out of a job in maybe a year or two. It all depends. It all depends. I mean, it's funny that it flipped this quick when they only lost to Alabama by like 3 points or whatever. Like it's college football comes at you fast, man. So I can tell you from the general consensus of the fan base, they're worn out with his arrogance and his inflexibility. And it's only good things for Florida State because he's not a good recruiter. With how good they've been the past 2 years, they should have cleaned up the state, and they have not. And it's because he's an odd guy from Vermont or whatever. He's just a weird dude.
So I didn't realize I was talking to my girlfriend's father, who's a big Florida guy. And I don't know. I never paid that much attention to Muschamp. I didn't realize they all thought Muschamp was a super weirdo too.
Oh,
I always thought of him as just kind of like a normal Southern football coach. So that is to say, the opinions that, and this isn't his opinion specifically necessarily, but they've already dealt with one weirdo. Now they're dealing with another. I think there's kind of they look at like a Mike Norvell who, while he's got a PhD in coach speak, like it's just kind of a normal dude to a degree.
He's a dork,
It's
like we said last time. He's just
it's
simply
just
a dork about football. And with Mullen doesn't want to be there. It's not only that he's not good at recruiting, he knows that, so he hates recruiting. That's why I said last year's going to be going to maybe the Raiders this year since they just fired John Gruden.
He's totally fine with recruiting just good enough to implement. He's a good offensive coach, and he's fine with getting good enough players to implement the offense effectively. And if you lose a couple here or there, he's okay with it. He just can't be bothered with recruiting. So there's instability at the Florida schools for sure. So Florida State I think that they've shown that they have a pretty good recruiting staff. I mean, the fact that the class is where it's at, and they have suffered some decommitments, which is the residual effect of losing to Jacksonville State on the absolute lamest bullshit Hail Mary I've ever seen in my life. It looked like it was happening underwater. It was so slow. So you're starting to see kind of the residual effects of that. Oluba decommitting, committing to Georgia. Travion Williams, the defensive end from Mississippi, openly saying, hey, I'm looking for better offers. Now, Florida State's got some time to make up on that, but I still say you could call Mike Norvell and his guys an overall pretty good recruiting staff. So the opportunity's there for us to take back the state and then hopefully expand out from there.
Sorry to cut everybody off from the wonderful interview we're having with Mr. Trey Rowland, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you guys a little bit about Sweat Block. As you can see, I'm a little bit of a heavier set guy, so one of the big things that I had to do back in the day before Sweat Block was find clothing that hid the sweat stains and everything else. I'll be wearing darker clothing or bigger stuff. Shout out to hoodies. But with Sweat Block, your boy is heading over to Lululemon. It's over in the Bonobos. It's over Tommy Bahama and wearing these colorful, free-flowing shirts. And I am not worried about a single sweat drop because Sweat Block, boys and girls, works for everything. It stops excessive sweat for up to 7 days per use. It is doctor created, doctor recommended. It has a dry shirt guarantee, and you can find it pretty much anywhere on Amazon, at CVS, or go straight to the source at sweatblock.com by using promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. You get 20% off your order. Folks, trust and believe. Sweat Block is not just for your armpits. It's for your chest, your back, your feet, and your hands. Trust me, all the editing, it gets to you a little bit. So head over to sweatblock.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON to get 20% off your order. So then where do you sit right now actually with your opinion on Coach Mike Norvell? Because Max can tell you right now, after the Jacksonville State game, I've been out on him for a little bit right now. I've been very down. I know we got the UNC win, the Syracuse win, but just like that solidified that this man is extremely stubborn. And also the explanation he gave me for the prevent, like, I don't want them to have enough time to kick a field goal. When I'm like, it's a freshman kicker. Like I'd rather than a Hail Mary. So then where do you sit right now actually with Coach Mike Norvell?
Yeah, and there was some issue with some of the things that he was saying, like what how much is he trying to cover for his defensive coordinator and all that sort of thing. So you got to read into some of those comments with a little bit of an analytical eye to see what actually happened. And luckily, I get to watch the film every week on the Triple Option, X's and O's YouTube page. Go to the X's and O's Patreon. My partner, Kevin, is poor. It's a running joke on
So
the show.
poor.
You'll get it if you watch. X's and O's wise, he does some impressive stuff. Florida State's wide receivers are absolute just hot, like trash juice, like the stuff that ends up on the side of Bourbon Street at like 2 p.m, just like bubbling and just awful. They can't get open. So a lot of times they started to win a couple of one-on-one battles the past few weeks, but a lot of times the reason that they've been open is they've been schemed open. There's been a whole lot of schemed open stuff. Mike Norvell is really good about having a play that has multiple options off of it to create some kind of confusion and some hesitancy in the defense. So I've been more. He's the X's and O's coach I thought he was. The things that disappointed him with me is personnel usage was a real head scratcher for me, particularly in the beginning of the year. Obviously, the running back touches were off, and it felt like he was very committed to a very third almost distribution, which didn't make any sense when you had Trayshawn Ward and Jayshawn Corbin running the way they did. I was also disappointed in when they were talking about accountability. They still had a lot of players out on the field that had been awful. There'd been some chatter of them not practicing very well, and so also some kind of off-field in the locker room stuff where they weren't really good influences, and those guys were still getting playing time. And then I also kind of question not so much his ability in totality to evaluate what he's got, but I thought the distribution of the offers that he laid out in the transfer portal, which overall the transfer portal is a win. Jermaine Johnson, Keir Thomas, Jamie Robinson, it's a win all day. We got some guys that are some of the best players on the team in the transfer portal, but the distribution of more offense. Why did we go off on our offensive lineman here? There were reports of Andrew Parchment being a dud at Kansas, and he was your only wide receiver. So I've still got my questions. Overall, I think he's got the tools necessary to be the guy. He's also dug himself a pretty substantial hole with what happened at the beginning of this season. Now, is he a good enough coach to coach out of it? He may be, but to me, I'm not in or out. I just evaluate the film as it comes, and a lot of it's going to depend on how he holds that 2022 recruiting class together. To me, this season, you ask me, like, hey, man, how many wins is a good season? I go, however many wins is enough to keep A.J. Duffy and Travis Hunter. That's a successful season for me. So numerically, I don't know what that is. So to me, I am firmly in the camp of I am riding the fence. The jury's still out. He does a lot of good stuff. He does some stuff that is questionable to me, but the way I feel about the program is analogous to the way I feel about Mike Norvell. Slightly optimistic.
So a couple things in there. I want to just plug my own film breakdown, and I want to hit what you said about how he does things that have so many different looks. So one play I broke down last week was where they used Cam McDonald as the squat back, right? They've got him down like in a 3-point stance right behind the tackle, obscured vision. And they did that weird it literally looked like a synchronized dance, a double counter to the right side. They pull Dylan Gibbons. It goes for like 11, 12 yards to the right side. Back is on the left. Cam McDonald's on the left. Maybe 4 plays later, they run the exact same play in every aspect, except Cam McDonald doesn't go lead block. He just sits there like he's in pass pro, and then all of a sudden turns around for a screen. Pretty interesting stuff how he does that, right? Because the defense, it's like, whoa, same formation, same, even the guard, pulls both times to the left side. Entirely different situation of what actually unfolds. The problem is, I think, to your point about personnel usage, Norvell relies on that scriptedness so heavily that he can't see, he loses the forest through the trees, right? He can't see, okay, maybe this isn't working tonight and we need to go to plan B. It's like, well, we got to do this because if we don't do this, then we can't do the next play, and we can't do that 6 plays down the line I've got drawn up already. And I'd like to see him be able to improvise a little more, because I think that's proving to be his biggest weakness, at least from what I look at.
I would say that as far as the personnel usage stuff, I had a bigger issue with that at the beginning of the season. It sounds like as Florida State has started to form an identity, and that identity is based solely around now Jordan Travis is your unquestioned number one starter, and your running backs they're the pinnacle of your like they're the focal point of your offense. My issue was as far as like inflexibility, I feel like his scheme does actually lead to some flexibility in game. It is kind of what it is. Where I'd agree with you, where he was inflexible, is he wanted Florida State to be that explosive passing team that he had at Memphis when he had what's that kid's name?
Brady White.
Brady White. When he had Brady White, not the first year when he just had the running backs. When he had Brady White, lived and died by explosive plays. He got McKenzie Milton. He wanted the UCF explosive passing offense, and it almost seemed like
We all did.
it took him a little bit longer to realize, and a lot of that was because of that magic of when he came in against Notre Dame. It took him longer than it should to realize that, hey, you don't have the wide receivers to be that explosive passing offense. So to me, that's where I saw the stubbornness. To me, that's done a complete 180 once it's like, okay, give the keys to Jordan, scheme around what he does well, let him run the zone read stuff, give him some easy throws, and then Jordan Travis does have a good enough arm to beat you over the top with, like you said, Max, once he can kind of lull you into a false sense of security. You've seen the same run action 3 or 4 times. You've seen even the same route combinations. The play where Ontario Wilson caught that big touchdown pass, he did that same motion throughout the game like 6 different times, and they did different plays off of it. So it's hard for a college defender to recognize what the hell's going on because you've seen the same exact play, and they do something different off of it every time, it seems. So I still say as an X's and O's guy, he's a plus X's and O's guy in my opinion. As far as like the game management, like the game theory stuff, when to go for it, when to kick it, I actually like him there too. I think he follows
I
the
love that he
analytics.
goes for it on 4th down.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
I love it. I think it's such a breath of fresh air than like what Dino Babers did against Clemson. I'd much rather have Norvell be wrong every now and then than have a coach that does that. With the KZ situation. And I don't mean this to say KZ's bad by any means. It's just, I think I kind of blame the coaching staff for putting too much load on him too early. But do you think it was like when you come home 4 years later from college and you run into that kid that was cool in high school and like it takes your brain longer than it should to realize like he's not actually that cool anymore because he never did anything with his life? Like, do you think Norvell had some of that of like, okay, this kid kicked my ass at UCF. Like, he just couldn't quite watch practice and go, maybe it's not the kid that put 400 yards on me when he was wearing black and gold.
Yeah. Like you come back from college the night before Thanksgiving and you're all out at the local bar, and the kid and the quarterback in high school that was a bagger at Publix is still a bagger at Publix, and he's still trying to talk the same amount of shit to you that he was when you were both at high school. Yeah, dude. I think that's a very interesting way to describe that effect. But yes, Mike Norvell handpicked McKenzie Milton. And it's because Milton beat his ass multiple times at Memphis. And the kid was he was a phenomenal college quarterback. I don't know if I'd say that he put too much on him too quick with what they did for the Notre Dame game. He saw a little bit of proof of concept there. I think he held on to that potential of what Florida State's offense could be with a good McKenzie Milton longer than he should have.
Interesting.
When the way that they treated the Jacksonville State game is just a glorified flag football game when you could have run over and over and over again and beat the hell out of them. That's going to be a stain on Mike Norvell's career, his entire coaching career. He's always going to be the Florida State coach that lost to Jacksonville State. He's got to live with that, and he's got to overcome that on the recruiting trail because that was a mess of his own making. So I'm glad that that's finally the fan fiction of like, what could it be? Florida State with the 2017 UCF offense, dead, buried. I don't think we have any delusions that's going to happen again. The problem is I love Jordan Travis as the quarterback as far as what we can do. The floor is much higher with him. The ceiling is limited. The problem is we got to keep him healthy. So the bye week came at a good time, but I love Jordan. Tough as nails. Historically not a guy that usually finishes out an entire game.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut it back, away again, folks, but we have to let you know about our friends over at rockauto.com. I've said it before and I've said it again. I might have to call up my uncle, Theo Francisco, down in Delray Beach, Florida. He's been a mechanic for the past 25 to 30 years. He'll lie to you about his age because you know how some older people get, but he has been using Rock Auto since day one. Rock Auto, they family-run business, whether it be getting, brake pads, getting lighter fluid, getting even stuff for your AC. My AC was having issues the other day, and I went straight to rockauto.com because if I went to an auto parts store and I went straight to the dealership, it would be either 30%, a 50%, or even up to 100% markup on what I actually need. And Rock Auto is a family-run business for do-it-yourselfers, and it has reliably low prices for every single customer. So please head on over to rockauto.com right now and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear section so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. And once you're done at rockauto.com, head on over to the fastest and easiest website to place all your sports betting action, betonline.ag, whether it be NFL, NCAA, NHL is back, NBA is back, MLB baseball playoffs have started. Shout out to the Houston Astros, the Red Sox, Dodgers. I won't name the other team. Heath, I know I'm speaking directly to you. I hope y'all lose the rest of your games and not make it any further. But with that being said, let me go over to the betonline.ag line of the day. For this weekend, folks, you can listen to the Week 7 Pick'em episode I had with Dane Domino. However, the betonline.ag line of the day from my vantage point, I am taking the under, folks, in LSU Ole Miss at 75.5. Folks, if you had listened to the episode last weekend, that number was too high. Last week it was 83. This week, in my personal opinion, Matt Corral might not be starting. He was banged up and hurt really badly at the end of the Tennessee game. And with LSU, I don't see them having another high-scoring output after they scored on 3 separate turnovers last week against Florida. The betonline.ag line of the day, folks, is the under 75.5 in LSU and Ole Miss. And now back to the interview.
Yeah, and the one good thing with Jordan too, though, you notice he kind of like I don't think I've ever seen him smile like the way he did actually at the UNC game. I know they have the big picture that's going around like Twitter and Google where he's like putting the fingers up after he scores, and that's the one big difference you see now. That like I think bringing in someone like Casey actually helped him be a lot more confident, like understand like his role with teams. Like listen, like I need to push through some of this pain because he already is a tough kid. We said last year that he was a huge gamer, and he's the main reason why he kept in a lot of football games last year and this year as well. So it is really to see a happier, a better Jordan Travis. Now, kind of pivot from all the happiness and sunshine. Let's go over something that actually we asked you last time you were on here, and that was the side of the defense. You guys on Triple Ops actually talk a little bit more about. I know the X's and O's, how would you try to show what Adam Fuller is trying to do with this personnel? Why it's not simply always an issue that he's the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of get your thoughts on how if Adam Fuller has like progressed actually as the DC, and also you mentioned another name that you were kind of hoping would do a little bit better, and that was Chris Marv. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on those two in particular because those are two that we, in my personal opinion, like probably are not going to be back here next year.
Yeah, as far as Adam Fuller goes, there's been a lot of times this year where guys are not trusting their technique, particularly in the defensive backfield. You see a lot of plays where we got burned. Guys would take inside leverage when they didn't have to. There was confusion as they were playing like cover 4, cover 3, when to let the guy go, whose guy it was. Alignment issues. Now, a lot of the stuff in the defensive backfield's been cleaned up. The problem with Adam Fuller right now is that, and they've had 2 pretty solid defensive performances, in my opinion, back to back. You got to see if that carries itself throughout the year. The problem is that he had to simplify so much of his defense that if you looked at a Florida State defensive coach team in 2021 and you compare it with like Memphis's defense in 2019, you would not think that it's the same defensive coordinator. He is not as aggressive as he liked to be. He's not as aggressive as he was at Marshall or Memphis, where he had all that success. He was a big proponent of, like, I guess you'd say subterfuge, like confusion, like looking at giving one look pre-snap and doing something different.
A lot of this guy's blitzes. I think he did a lot of those at Memphis too.
Yeah, so a lot of just anything to draw like confusion, and we're not seeing that. Now, Florida State has not been competent enough on defense to to do that. So that's the problem is Adam Fuller is not, and whether it's he can't because he's not getting the message relayed well enough to his guys to do it, or if he's kind of snake bit right now, like I can't put any more on these guys' plates or I'm going to get burned again. He's not coaching like what got him the job. Now, the past couple of weeks have been better. The defensive line has been a strength all year, but you're starting to see the past couple of weeks in the defensive backfield, new faces, younger faces, and you're starting to see better technique. The fact that Jerrion Jones, who's a guy that I personally threw on the scrap heap, I didn't think he was going to be good at Florida State at all, got to break the rock and had 2 or 3 monumental plays against North Carolina, is a massive surprise and a massive win for that coaching staff. Marcus Woodson, a guy that we questioned as well. It's harder to question him because he's a recruiting ace, and he's not going anywhere. But that's a win for Adam Fuller. Now, if you want to talk about Chris Marv, that's a guy that's not recruiting well, and that's a guy who the whole of the defense all year has been the linebackers.
Yep.
They played better. They played better against UNC and Syracuse. Kalen DeLoach's progression has been a very big success story. The fact that we are getting something out of that kid is great. However, there's still too many lapses in knowing what they need to do and where they need to be at the second level, where if that stuff doesn't get cleaned up more, Florida State's going to get their asses kicked in the second half of the schedule. And if Chris Marv doesn't stop recruiting better, I know he's got like some weird square soccer mom body and those like dorky glasses.
The blue shorts.
You want to tell, with the weird like fupa, like shorts. Like he's an odd guy, which I don't care about if you recruit well. But you're an odd guy and you're not recruiting well and you're not coaching particularly well. Couple of things. Like I said, I don't want to discount the Kalen DeLoach progression, but
he's got Emmett Rice from last year.
Yeah, and he coached up Emmett Rice last year. Emmett Rice was maybe the most improved player out of the entire year. And if they can get, I don't know what Emmett Rice's health status is. That was a massive blow to.
He's going to do a Van Wilder, come back for like a 9th year next year.
We'll take him, brother.
A medical. I just think it's tough because you look at the value of coaching versus recruiting, and at some positions like head coach, with Dan Mullen, maybe there's times where it's a wash, but it's like going back to the old days of working at a bar, right? You can make the best drinks in the world, but if you're not getting anyone in the door, it's kind of irrelevant, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Marv
Absolutely.
knew he's taking over this unit that needs to be improved, but if he doesn't bring in better guys, like you can only polish your current roster up so much at that position, and it doesn't look like. I'll give you Kalen DeLoach. I agree, that's been a great improvement, but it's not like that might be a kid who maybe just wasn't playing to his potential, and we're not seeing that like across the board. Like, okay, he's getting this massive efficiency of performance out of these kids. So I just
let me clarify then. Personally, what I feel, I don't feel like both Marv and Fuller are recruiting plus coaching well enough to where it's a lock that they need to be back next year.
I agree with that.
So I'm trying. I want to give nuance that it's not all bad.
Sure. Right.
It's not all good. To me, they're not doing enough good on both fronts right now to justify keeping their jobs next year. So that's where I'm at right now.
I just I don't know. Maybe I'm just the contrarian on Fuller. I don't know. I almost feel like Fuller, because when I watch the games and like y'all do watch the tapes, you do see where it's like he had the right idea. The players missed the communication here that led to a long and so I'm more on the Marv needs to go train than I am Fuller. I think Fuller, if we win 3 more games this year, I think he's earned himself another year, unless Florida just hangs 52 on us and Miami embarrasses us. And I don't know. I'm really starting to see his defense come together. But Marv is just the one for me where it's like that ticket's already been punched in my ticket book. There's nothing really he can do to, unless he goes and signs some 5-star and something crazy
fair.
we don't expect.
I think that's very fair. Truthfully, Fuller gets the rap because of that play at the end of Jacksonville State and how the defense performed last year. The main problem for this Florida State team has been on the offensive side of the ball. In my opinion, that's been the side of the ball that, if I had to pick, has been the more disappointing.
Sure.
Mike Norvell's not going to fire himself. He may not fire his Harry Potter bud, Kenny Dillingham. There's continuity from the Memphis side there. But, yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, Marv is in a position, especially recruiting-wise. It's a bad position. Florida State was in on a number of targets. There's a number of names linked to Florida State. If you don't get them to sign the line, pack your bags, pal. See ya.
Yep.
Get the hell out of here. But LSU, like we said, Etoufe Ogre, gone. Demario Tolan, a linebacker from Central Florida, says Florida State is up there. That's a current LSU commit. You get that kid in, great. Daniel Martin, the kid from Georgia who's looking at Vanderbilt and Oregon. That's a huge target for FSU. Like I said, it's funny because of the coaches' fates. I do think that there's going to be some switch up at the end of the season no matter what. But the coaches' fates are similar to like the team and the program's fates. You can't stick a fork in really almost anybody yet because they all have enough room to move to where they could maybe save their gigs. But if I had to pick like the most likely to get fired, it would be Chris Marv for sure.
What's up, guys? Drake here. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And thank you again, Mr. Trey Rowland, for coming on. It's always a great time to talk some FSU football with someone that we've gotten a little close to. And now this is his third time coming on. And I assure you it won't be his last. Please tune in tomorrow to part 2 of our interview with him. And we discuss a little more of the coaching staff, where we see the direction of the team moving forward. And we also kind of have a little fun and play athletic director for the University of Coral Gables down south. Now, please, if you can, don't forget to rate, review, like, share, or subscribe either on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified immediately whenever we drop a new video. Thank you guys so much for love and support. And for myself, for Trey, for Max, we'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Seminoles, and take care, everybody.